Hey everyone, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. And this is your daily Uncut news. So we got to start with world news. And essentially, world currencies are falling in comparison to the dollar. You can take a look at the British pound here. It's the lowest since 1985. And I was looking at the chart, and it's been up and down quite a bit. I mean, I'm sure you guys know we've had the essentially the fiscal financial crisis. That was the bank crisis back in 0809. We also had the Brexit whole situation, and there's been a turbulent time for the pound. And as they left the EU, no one really knew what was going to happen with the economy. People are feeling kind of nervous because basically, with the new prime minister coming in, they're kind of concerned that she may be cutting taxes, right, to stimulate growth. But essentially, cutting taxes is another way of stimulus, where you're putting essentially more money in the currency. And also, too, there's concerns that they might just print money to give to the energy companies. So if you're in the UK, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these kind of things. Are you worried about your currency? Lowest, compared to the dollar since 1995 is something to be concerned about. But they're not the only ones in that park. Basically, if you guys know, we're in Korea right now. I came back here, or I should say I came here the first time back in 08, 09, basically 09. And this is the lowest the currency's been since now 08. The Korean won keeps collapsing, and if I keep telling you guys, if you're in dollars and you want to live abroad, you want to travel abroad, now is a good time. I don't know how much longer this is going to go. Generally speaking, though, the dollar isn't like going to go crazy up and down. It's just solid, and so when people are worried about other currencies, they start retreating to the dollar. So this is not just Korea, not just the UK. You're looking at the Australian dollars going down as well. This is probably the kind of things that you're not going to hear a lot about in the U.S. news, but it definitely is a point of concern. We're all connected way more than we were before, and also too before we were just focusing on Evergrande and what's going on in China. But you're seeing multiple currencies around the world perform poorly against the dollar. And it's interesting because Citigroup is saying like the only really safe place to go these days is the dollar. So people are buying up bonds and things of this nature. One thing that I think is really important as well, we've talked about this several times in the channel. You want to look at the 2-year and the 10-year yields. And basically, the 2-year has been spiking. You can see here the curve. So basically, the difference between the 10 and the 2 and the 10 is the most in 40 years. It's hard to say that we're not going to recession when you see these kind of things. Usually, when the 2-year spikes above the 10, it does signal a recession. We saw the spike before. I want to say, if I remember correctly, was this back in March, guys, or something like that earlier this year? But now it's like sustained levels, and I'm looking at this is as of recording, the 2-year is at 3.9%, the 10-year is at 3.47%. So this isn't like a small difference. This is a big difference, and I imagine the 2-year will probably hit 4% sometime soon. So do keep an eye on this thing, and you can look at the chart just for the 2-year. This is a little bit outdated numbers. This is saying 3.87. Like I said, the most recent numbers on the 2-year is 3.9. Watch this thing, and you can see it's just got this crazy spike going on. You guys can see where the trend is going. Oil is also going down. It's mostly the worry is on demand. And so this is sort of where kind of the game is in OPEC's court. Okay, so if the prices are going down, then if you want the price to go up, then you're going to cut supply. So we'll see what happens. The thing is, though, even though prices are going down now, I still expect in winter just people need to use energy more, right? I think you guys get this. And so this is sort of where you're going to get a lot of volatility. When we had our inflation read on the CPI data, I remember that was taking out energy. People thought that core CPI wouldn't be so bad, but it ended up being elevated because you have, you guys, this rents are going to stay high. Car prices are going to stay high, and also too, we keep paying people more money. I'm not saying you shouldn't get paid more money, but all these things are contributing factors to inflation. And one of the things I think is really quite interesting, Germany took a serious move to sort of protect their energy situation. And this could be a situation to where it's like every country for themselves, every person for themselves. It's like running to the lifeboats on the Titanic, essentially. Germany seized control of some Russian assets in Germany, is my understanding of this. The way they talked about this thing was called Rosneft oil refineries. There were 3 of them. They were sort of basically Russian owned, and Germany's just like, you know what, we're just going to take them. So I probably rank, I don't know all the details of this. I read through the thing and I'm just like, what? And I mean, in a situation of essentially, energy, I guess you can just take whatever you want. So for anyone who's in Europe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this kind of thing. This seems pretty wild to me, and obviously, I don't think Russia's thrilled by that. But I don't think Russia's going to be attacking Germany. Well, I mean, who knows? I don't think they're in a situation that they're still, in war with Ukraine, and it seemed like recently Ukraine is certainly doing a successful counteroffensive. But I thought this was pretty big news, though, and this was just reported just a few hours ago. So we'll probably get more reports on it. We'll try to give you an update, but. As of now, it just looks like Germany is taking some Russian oil fields, which is pretty crazy. In terms of the U.S. news, yesterday, the FedEx reported that basically things look pretty bleak for future. Their stock was down around 19% as of recording of this, and it was just falling, mostly because the idea is that FedEx, how they report and what their forecasts are, is a reflection of the economy. And FedEx is an international company, right? And so one of the things that I thought was quite interesting is like how much slower we're talking about. So they're saying they're going to close 90 offices and 5 corporate locations, and they're not going to be hiring anyone. I was like, what? So it's not good. And I remember yesterday it was something like Wall Street expected around, it was like $5.14 in earnings. They came in reporting $3.33 in earnings. The revenue was down as well, but the earnings, though, that's a pretty big miss. And then this is a report coming from JP Morgan regarding FedEx. They're downgrading the stock. This is what they had said. And I guess a lot of analysts are downgrading FedEx. Here's the quote. Against a backdrop of weaker economic activity and slower e-commerce growth with inconsistent execution, we believe FedEx will continue trading at a depressed multiple until earnings stabilize with some potential help from cost-saving initiatives. So they're going from, they're basically downgrading it to a neutral. So it's not necessarily a sell, neutral sort of like hold. I mean, I think FedEx is still going to be around, but what I told you guys before, though, here's a couple concerns. So FedEx, if Amazon goes to, doing their own shipping and just cutting off FedEx and UPS, that definitely hurts the shipping carriers, right? Also, too, if just overall consumer economy is down, that hurts them. And then also, I mentioned you guys before, if businesses are switching over to like a DocuSign kind of thing, that also hurts FedEx. So there's multiple things going on. Plus, you have high fuel costs, which really hurts these kind of companies. So I mean, this is pretty crazy. The FedEx CEO is saying he's thinking a worldwide recession is on the horizon. And this is a quote from him. We're seeing that volume decline in every segment around the world. And so, we've just started our second quarter. The weekly numbers are not looking so good. So we just assume at this point that economic conditions are not really good. We are a reflection of everyone else's business, especially the high value economy in the world. So I would agree with that FedEx represents basically just business activity. And I've told you guys this before, as interest rates go up, and it's not just in USA, it's all around the world. This sort of like represents the opportunities that businesses have to borrow money to try to grow their businesses. But when the cost of money goes up, it makes it more difficult for that. And people are less likely to do these kind of activities. Plus, as I mentioned before, some of these sort of macro things affect FedEx a great deal. One of the things I thought was really quite interesting as well, this is just an article about Scott's Miracle-Gro, but it's funny because we talked about Walmart, Target, all these big retailers. Basically, here's the gist of it was, there was a shortage of goods, right, during the pandemic. You just couldn't get anything. And I'm sure you guys know this. Like, for example, I really wanted to get that new Xbox or new PlayStation, and they're like, couldn't get them anywhere. And, it turns out, so then the stores order a bunch of extra stuff, right? The stuff finally comes, and now the demand is gone. And so this is a simple example of like Scott's Miracle-Gro also had the same situation. They got too much stuff and no buyers. So companies kind of ordered, I don't know. It happened to more than one company, and you can't blame them. It's just things were out of their control, and it just felt like, okay, well, since prices are surging and there's high demand, let's get all this stuff. And it finally came, and no buyers now. And it's actually kind of interesting. This relates to is like there's maybe no buyers because no one has any money. And when you don't have any money, what do? You go on strike. And so this turns out, this was a study over at Cornell. And they basically are tracking, labor relations, and they're saying here that there were 180 strikes in the first 6 months of 2022, and you compare this to 2021, was only 102 strikes. So basically, more people are striking, and you guys know this with the railroad strikes. And I mentioned this before that this will bleed into other industries. So we'll probably see a lot of people going on strike or threatening to go on strike, basically because things cost more, right? And this is rationality. If your rent is expensive, your food is expensive, and your fuel's expensive, and you feel like your boss is not paying you enough. And we also have this quiet quitting movement, which we've been talking about a lot on this channel as well. People are going to go on strike. Also, too, I keep telling you guys, people are going to be unemployed. This is a real thing, and we're going to keep seeing these kind of things. And I'm right there with you, man. I really get it. Also, too, you're going to have a lot of canceled IPOs. This would have been the biggest IPO in quite some time. ByteDance, if you guys don't know, ByteDance is basically the parent of TikTok, which is serious money. That looks like they're not going to do it, mostly because it's just not a good time to do it. And they're looking at buying back their own shares and staying private. What's interesting about TikTok is they spend a lot of money on advertising USA. And there's been kind of rumors. I don't know if I should take these serious or not. And basically, the gist is that the Americans are considering, the government is considering kicking TikTok out of the USA. I say it's rumors because I think it could be like a Marco Rubio kind of thing, Republican who wants to be tough on China. And well, who knows if we'll take this seriously, because there's a lot of people who use this thing. I will say though, they may, and I think I might have read something recently where like you can make a rule that say TikTok can't be used at military installations. So no military personnel will be allowed to use TikTok, which is, it just sounds so funny, but it's a real thing, right? Military people can use TikTok like anyone else. Americans like TikTok. And the other thing is too, is that young people are using it as a search engine. So starting to challenge Google. Now, one of the things is not just political that wants to push out TikTok. It would be a company like a Google, like a Facebook, like a Twitter. All these American companies are like, looking at TikTok, looking over their shoulder, thinking like, I don't want to be ceding market share to them. So this is a real thing. And also too, there's privacy concerns because it is a foreign company. But I wouldn't be shocked if TikTok's banned, but I'm just saying that this is a sort of a new generational thing. And my personal feeling is I'm going to stay on YouTube. Whenever I look at the content of TikTok, and I'm just like, what are these kids watching? It's just a lot of mindless dancing and crazy stunts, and that's TikTok. And then the last thing I want to talk about is I still think the Republicans are going to win in the midterms. I still think that. I think it's going to be tough when people are losing their jobs and inflation is going through the roof. It's hard for any party in power. So I think Republicans are going to win. However, some of the polling coming out is that at least on the Democrat side, Democrats, are thinking, okay, at least we're going in the right direction at 50%. The last I checked, I think Biden's around 42% approval. In terms of if Republicans like Biden or not, it's like 5%. So he's not going to get any help there. And independents are like around 27%. So I still give the favor. I still think the ball is in the Republicans' court, and they control the midterm elections. But obviously, we'll see what happens when it happens, and we'll keep tracking these things. So hopefully everything's going great with you. Hopefully you guys are able to maintain some safety and security in your world. I know things do seem uncertain. One of the things I always say at these kind of things is like, when in doubt, the American economy is going to be good over a long period of time. Although the next few years could be kind of bumpy. Right now, it seems like we're dealing with global problems with the war in Ukraine, tensions with Russia and China. Also, too, the possible invasion of Taiwan was something we're talking about. But overall, the tomorrow will still happen. The sun will still rise, and the moon, the moon will still come up, and then the sun will still set. I mean, the life goes on as normal, and we'll still be doing crazy dances on TikTok maybe for the foreseeable future. But we'll see what happens here. I think the biggest concern right now, though, is that the witnessing the fall of foreign currencies, and they keep setting these records of like lowest since 2008, or you see like the British one lowest since 1995. This has some concerns. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all this stuff. I do appreciate everyone watching, and I'll keep trying to put these out for you. This is your daily Uncut News. Thanks again.